as we were driving along, I noticed that there was a bright light up in the sky. And at first I thought it was a star, but I noticed it was moving. And it seemed kind of odd because it seemed like it was getting closer to me. And I felt like I could hear uh, communication coming from it, like voices. And I found that kind of curious. And it was getting closer and closer to the vehicle and bigger and bigger. And so I climbed over into the front seat next to my dad, and this thing was, by now it was at treetop level, and it was pacing us. It was following the car, and my dad hadn't noticed it. And so I pointed out the window and I said, "What's that light out there?" And he said, "What light?" I said, "That light." And he looked out the window, and when he saw it, he seemed really surprised, and he almost like went into an instant panic. And he started uh, pressing on the gas pedal and accelerating and trying to outrun this thing. And there was just no way that you could outrun it. And it was following us. And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "Shut up, leave me alone." And he never talked to me like that usually, but I could see that he was visibly upset about it. And when you're a child of 4, everything is new to you. So I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think that there was anything unusual about it. And so the thing sped ahead. It was like a saucer shaped craft, and it started coming down in the road in front of us. And we were traveling down a kind of a dirt road, and it shot ahead and it came down in the road. And when it came down, it was bright and it lit up the trees and lit up the road. My dad he couldn't go any further because he'd crash into it if he did. So he slowed down, and he stopped the car, and we were about maybe 60 to 80 feet from it. So I noticed he'd regained his composure, and he said to me, he said, "I want you to stay down low and don't look over the dashboard. Just stay down low so they can't see you." And he said, "I'm going to go out and see what they want." And he said, "Under no circumstances do you get out of the car." He said, "You stay in the car, stay down low, and I'll come back." And he said, he insisted that I stay in the car. So he got out, and I kind of peeked over the dashboard, and I noticed there were 2 beings standing in the road. And the I don't know if it was the headlights or the lights behind them, but I could see them clearly. And my dad started walking over to one of them that appeared to be the leader. And he said he started talking to him, and I was peeking over the seat. I was trying to get a better look and wondering if I knew these people, because somehow they seemed kind of familiar. And so my curiosity got the best of me, and you can get away with a lot when you're 4 years old. So I climbed out through the driver's seat, and I started walking toward my dad, and he blocked the view of the being so that he couldn't see me, but the other being could see me plain as day. He couldn't block both of them. And so I was coming up behind my dad slowly, and I saw my dad must have noticed he heard me coming, and so he put his hand behind his back, and he was making a motion like that, get back in the car, kind of thing, And but I just kept walking toward him, and the being that was talking to him just kind of suddenly looked over his shoulder like that, and he said, "Oh," he said, "you seem to be concerned about this child." And my dad said, kind of laughed sheepishly, and he said, "Well, yeah, that's my son." And once he noticed that the being had seen me, he turned to me and he said, "I told you to stay in the car. I told you not to get out. Now go back and get in the car and wait for me, and I'll be there shortly." And so I said, "But I want to see, you know." And so the being talking to my dad, I could hear his voice in my mind. And he said to my dad, "Would you like my friend or a crew member or whatever to take him back to the vehicle for you?" And my dad said, "No, that's okay." He said, "We have to be on our way because my wife's waiting for me at home." And uh, so without waiting for an answer, the being just, he looked at the other being and kind of nodded his head. And the other being came over to me and took me by the hand and started walking me back to the car. And my dad was just staring at us. Uh, and I could see he just wasn't happy about this situation at all. And he he was concerned about me, but the being took me, put me back in the car, and he got in next to me in the driver's seat and was sitting there next to me in the car. And at that point, when I looked back at the other being, I noticed that him and my dad were not there anymore. So I had assumed that they went inside the ship. And it was a large saucer shaped craft. It took up basically the whole road, but it was at night and it was dark and there were no other cars on the road. And so I was sitting there with this other being sitting next to me, and he basically kept me company while my dad was being abducted.